really helpful at providing different views and different ideas for the campus. I'm the coordinator here. If you haven't been here before, even if you have, you probably noticed there's some construction going on. It's a good thing it's not 3 o'clock in the afternoon or before, because it really gets kind of noisy in here at times. On the other side of those doors are going to disappear this summer, God willing. And on the right side, we're putting in a science lab. Right now, they're putting in the the sewer lines. So they've actually they cut a hole in the cement about yay wide, and then they dug the dirt down, and they're going to put pipes in. It's really an amazing thing to watch over time.
So what was your name again?
Daniel, I am first. Okay, the coordinator. And then on the right side, we're going to add a science lab. On the left side, we're going to add a larger classroom, so we can do larger activities like this. And then there's going to be 2 quiet study rooms on one side of the larger study area, like this common area we have now is going to triple in size. We'll have two quiet study areas on one side, 1 quiet study room on the other, and in the back we'll have a larger office for student use, things like that. We haven't quite figured that part out. More vending machines, because the vending machines in front of the building technically are not supposed to be there. We had to change things in order to bring those in, because it's really hard to bring food out here. I've been struggling with this now for 15 months. We've had a truck here, then a truck drove away, then a different truck came in, and that truck drove away. And it's been a little bit difficult. So they're going to bring in more vending machines. Let's see what else do we have back there. And then another set of bathrooms. Okay, that's phase 2. And then after that, there's a phase 3, which is still 50% of the building. Right? So we have room to grow. And what we're going to be doing is, when I finally find time, we're going to start asking people, okay, what should we do in the back? Okay, so that's coming up soon.
We're going to have couches out there so you can take a nap between classes.
No, we don't want people to be too comfortable, otherwise they don't go away.
Right.
So that's the plan. Where we have hopefully a year from now in spring, we'll have additional classes with science labs, things like that, bigger classrooms, and so we're continuing to change. It's really nice. I'd also like to point out, because it took me 6 months to get this done, that the floors were waxed in the last month.
I actually noticed.
Nice.
If you haven't been here, right, the floors have been deteriorating since we moved in. And I had to put in requests for Pearl City and get rejected several times, saying we don't have time, we don't have time, we don't have time. And then finally, they let me hire somebody to do it. So the same people that do Foodland do our floors.
Nice.
They do a really good job.
So you said
So I'm very, very impressed. Okay, now it's time for me to introduce Martha Noyes.
Yes.
Okay, she's our speaker today, and I'm not going to say anything else because I really don't know you too well. However, she's been studying, specializing in pre-contact Hawaiian cultural astronomy, and that's what she's here for today. Okay, thank you again for coming and surviving the traffic.
Thank you, and I deserve something for that, I'm sure. I think on the way home I'll stop and buy a fine box of wine.
There's Foodland next.
Yeah.
Building on the left side. Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you. I'm Martha. This is Stella. Stella's my assistant. She's my service dog. She's been with me since she was 18 months old, and she's now about 13 and a half. So she's likely to take some liberties that she's not entitled to. I don't think she has canine dementia yet, but she does every now and then borrow other people's food and things that are against the rules. So hopefully we'll get through this without any surprises. Her successor service dog, who will be joining us in about 2 months, is actually her niece. So it's at least it's all in the family. Okay, so I'm a cultural astronomer. People often confuse that with archaeoastronomer. Being an archaeoastronomer means that you specifically use archaeological sites to base measurements, alignments, orientations from or on. What I do does not require an archaeological site, although I often use them. You can do cultural astronomy regardless of sites, because it's about how the culture uses celestial objects and celestial phenomena. And those objects and phenomena obviously exist and take place in more than one site, or in a place where there is no site. So the cultural astronomy does differ in that way. For the last 12 years, give or take a few months, I've been working with the astronomy associated with Kukaniloko. That turned out to be a really fortuitous accident. I don't believe in accidents, but you get my point. Because Kukaniloko is the people of Oahu. And I didn't know this, I did know that ahead of time, but I didn't know ahead of time that the landscape from the point of view of Kukaniloko was named for places where important stars rose in the east or set in the west. Once that became apparent, Kukaniloko became the most amazing teacher I've ever had. I would just sit there. I'd go out there with all kinds of instruments. I was going to measure this, measure that, check this, check that, and I would just sit there and not use my toys. And then I'd go home, and around 3 o'clock in the morning, boom, I'd wake up knowing something. And then I'd have to run to my computer and check on planetarium programs and get out my maps and check with my maps, and son of a gun, one thing after another. So we're going to sort of start with that. Although I want to say along the way, I haven't put any citations in this presentation, and that's my bad. I usually do, but I got kind of jammed up and I wanted to get the PowerPoint done. So I just left off citations. To remedy that, over the next couple of weeks, I will add citations and do this as a PDF, and upload it to academia.edu. So the citations will be complete in that version, and academia is free. Academia.edu is free to go to, and my papers there and everybody else's papers there are free to download. So, I'll also give you my email before we go this evening, so that if you forget academia.edu, you can email me and ask me to please remind you. There are a lot of sites and stars on the Waianae coast. And obviously I can't do all of them in one night, 1 week, 1 month. So I'm sticking with those that strike me from what I have experienced and what I know as perhaps the most enlightening or explanatory of the importance of the relationship between stars and sites. All right. One of the ways that Kukaniloko taught me to approach, as I said, the subject is through names, place names and star names. Every major Hawaiian star has multiple names. Some have as many as 20 names. Every one of those names means something. They're not accidents. They're not random. They're purposeful. They have something to say about the culture and about how that star functions. A lot of understanding those functions and the star's characteristics comes from things that aren't easy to understand right off the bat. A lot relies on Hawaiian poetics, on kauna, on noahuna. This Kaupakuhale is an example of that. Kaupakuhale is where the sun sets on the afternoon of the day the star Antares rises in the evening over here. So, how do you know that? Because Antares is a roof beam, functionally. He's a house post, and he's the main roof beam of the celestial house. He is also the greatest of all the stars in the sky, with the exception of the planets, who aren't stars, but get called Hoku also. So he's really, really important. In some stories, he's Wakia's older brother. So he's a big deal. So he is this Kaupakuhale, that mountain. He is the house beam, he is the post, he is the greatest, and those are meanings of Kaupakuhale. House beam, the greatest. So it takes that kind of homework, and believe me, it's homework. You know, it's like, I didn't see that name, Kaupakuhale, and go, house beam. That took a lot of, you know, visiting dictionaries and revisiting the names of Antares. Antares, by the way, is the red star in the constellation Scorpius, or the Hook of Maui. Okay. The names of Antares, for example, let's see, right side up, upside down, not sure. We'll try. Okay, tell us how great he is. These are among his names. Kahuokolani, the foundation of the sky, or the seed or source of the sky or heaven. Ikua, the high lord of space and time, or the supreme ruler of space and time. He has a partner in his rulership of space and time, and it's his female consort, Aldebaran. At any rate, also Kukulukulu, to build something, to be a post, and to rule. Maybe sometime I'll do the whole 9 yards on the rulers of space and time. There are 6 of them, and they're all in the sky, but I can't do that right now. So the place names for where a star rises or sets, together with the names of the star, tell us a lot about how Hawaii used astronomy before contact. It wasn't just about navigation. It wasn't just about where are the Pleiades. It was about understanding space and time. It was about understanding one's place in a larger cosmos, in a larger universe. This region of this island is particularly important because it's on the west side. And the west is the front of most Polynesian islands. And that's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, the west is where Polynesia came from. It came east from west, taking one group of islands to the next, to the next, to the next. So ancestral lands are in the west. And what else is in the west? Where do you go when you're not living anymore?
Po.
The beach.
Beach, yeah.
Sleeping places.
Good thing I was a wise guy.
Sleeping places.
Pardon?
Sleeping places.
Leaping places. That's where you go on the way to where you're going. So when you're done with the leaping place, you enter
Po.
Yeah. So Po is thought of as west and south. So the west and the setting sun, where does the sun go when it sets?
West.
You can't go any farther west than west. So where does it go when the sun sets? Yeah, exactly. So Po is an incredibly important part of Hawaiian knowledge. And it's incorporated into many facets of various Hawaiian knowledges. And this side of the island has a really strong, powerful relationship to Po. And clearly, in pre-contact days, there was a great understanding of the many importances of Po here. For instance, at the March and September equinoxes, the sun sets, okay, that would be this one. Yeah, the sun sets over Mauna Ka'ala. Mauna Ka'ala belongs to both sides, yeah? Because you can see it from here, and you can see it from over there. Ka'ala gets translated often, most often as, or Mauna Ka'ala, as the fragrant mountain, supposedly for the abundance of sandalwood trees that once grew there. But astronomically, that name has a very different meaning. It means the mountain where the sun turns. And that's what this graphic is trying to show. In Oahu comprehension of the annual travels of the sun, the model for that travel is a diamond shape. The narrow ends are the two solstices. The wide sides are the equinoxes. So when the sun is traveling, this is the thingy? No, not. There we go. Oh, have to keep holding on. Okay. So when the sun is traveling, it has to turn to continue to the solstice. That's the sun turning. That's Ka'ala. There, it is also a contraction for Ka'ala La, the road of the sun, the path of the sun. That's takes us to Orion's belt and Betelgeuse, and they have an association with the equinoxes, not because they are timed to the equinoxes, they're not, but because they set over Mauna Ka'ala. And that's just the way the logic of pre-contact astronomy works. Simultaneous occurrences are one set of belonging to one another, and identical locations is another. So here we have Betelgeuse and Orion's belt having to do with the equinox sunsets. Here you see where they actually are. Betelgeuse is in Orion's shoulder, and the belt runs across his waist. They set over Makua, and most people think of Makua as parent. But parent, or Makua, also means progenitor, or first parents, original parents. And they set over Kea'au, which astronomically means the arrival of the era of Wakea, the arrival or the beginning of the era of Au, of light and humankind. Aldebaran up here, there we go, and Betelgeuse, whoops, and by the way, Betelgeuse, okay, I'm going frontwards instead of backwards. Nope, I'm going backwards. Okay. Where's the magic man?
Yes.
This is where I want to be. Take what? Take high?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my nephew's name.
So if you want to go to the next one.
No, I want to be here for a minute.
Okay. But when you're ready, you click this.
That one, okay. Or you stay here. No, I'm coming. This is, honest to God, this is the first time I've ever tried to do this thingy, this PowerPoint thing with my own hands. I don't trust my fingers, but at any rate. Okay, so Betelgeuse and Aldebaran both set over Poakuku Lailai. Why does that matter? Well, Aldebaran is Haumea. She's Papa. She's La'i in the sky. That's just 3 of her names. She has a whole lot of other names. But that's one of the people she is in the sky. So she sets over Pohakuku La'i. In other words, she sets over the terrestrial symbol or representative of herself, the first female to give birth to a human child. I'm going to give you the story that I was taught, and I know that if you guys are from here, you may know other stories. But I only know the ones I know. And I would be happy to learn any others, but this is the one I know. Kane wanted to be the father of La'ilai's first child, but he wasn't available at the time. So she had her first child by Ki'i, who was human. This made that child, the child of Ki'i, the older sibling of the children that Kane had with La'ilai later. And the way I was taught was this set up that relationship where the older line, the older sibling, the older lineage is responsible for the well-being and care of the younger. Setting up the reason why human beings are responsible for caring for deities. So that's the way I was taught, that we're in this together. Taurus is what I used on this map, but Taurus, the main star of Taurus is Aldebaran. So you see Taurus is marked here twice. This side for her rising, and this side for her setting. And on this side, you have Kahana Valley, right? And on this side, you have Kahana Haiki. They are partners. They are about the same thing. They are about the post, Aldebaran again, building the celestial house. And they're about cutting lengthwise. So why would you cut lengthwise? And why is that restricted? It's restricted because of the solar zenith and the solar nadir. In May, Aldebaran, oh, I did it again. Okay, I'll put that down. Aldebaran is with the sun 90 degrees over your head. That's the solar zenith. In July, there's another solar zenith, but Aldebaran isn't there. The Cancer is there. In November, the sun is 90 degrees below you. And Antares, the partner of Aldebaran, is with the sun 90 degrees below you. In January, there's another solar nadir, but Antares isn't there. I forget who's there. Nobody's there. Oh, Sagittarius is there. Okay, so there's a very important moment, and that's in November when the sun is 90 degrees below. At that same moment, Aldebaran is 90 degrees above. That forms this axis that runs through the earth, and it unites the east half of the sky, which is male, to the female or west half of the sky. It also unites above and below, Ao and Po. It also creates, and I know some of you heard me say this before, the third dimension. Most of the time we measure, oh, you go north, or you go east, or you go southwest, or you go that way, you go this way, but it's all like a map. It's all 2 dimensions. This adds the third dimension in Hawaiian knowledge of space and time, up and down. And because it's specific to a moment in time, it also adds a 4th dimension of time. So this is a pretty big deal. And that's why it's restricted. This is knowledge that was not readily available to the average person. It was sort of like, you know what you know when you're in the 8th grade, you know some more when you're in high school, you know a lot more by the time you finish college. And if you've gone and gotten a PhD, you know a whole lot more about some things. So this is, I would consider this maybe at least master's degree level. Okay. Aldebaran does the same sort of thing over Keawaula, because it has a partner on the windward side, Ka'ava. And this is a story out of creation about the first Haloa, the child of Wakea and Ho'ohokukalani, his daughter. The first Haloa was stillborn and didn't live and was buried in a corner of the garden, and from there the first kalo plant grew. These sites through Aldebaran, who is Haumea and Papa, are telling us this story. Because Ava, in this sense, is what the word for a premature infant is. So Ka'ava is that sparkling, glittering, royal premature infant, and Keawaula is that royal red premature infant. These stories are written in a combination of places on the land and in the names of stars. So we might forget some things, but if we learn these things, we won't forget everything. When Betelgeuse rises, he rises with the solstices. He rises once with the December solstice and once with the June solstice. Kaneana, which you may know better as Makua Cave, Kaneana speaks of the solstices. It speaks of what Betelgeuse does at the solstices. It's also a marker for Betelgeuse as he sets. Betelgeuse is a male, just like Aldebaran is female. So, Kane, the sun, Ana, to survey or measure. So, Betelgeuse measures both the distance, geographically, of the sun's travel and the time in the sun's travel between solstices. And Kaneana represents that. You can see other of his names reinforcing that. On the windward side, he has a place named called Koyele, which some people translate, or I should say Rubelite Johnson translates as solstice, and a couple of other people translate as solstice messenger. And Kumanamana, which means the many-fingered, or in this case, the astronomical meaning has to do with the rays of the sun, and relates to solstice, which relates to the tropics, which is why Mokumanamana is such a big deal, because it sits on the Tropic of Cancer, and that's a source of its name. So Manamana for Betelgeuse is a reminder of that relationship, solstice and tropics. I love Ohikilolo just because I'm so in love with the name. Astronomically, this is a really cool name. I know it has many, many other meanings, but it is where star experts gathered. I don't know when they gathered, how often they gathered. I know that they gathered to share information, to update information. Every few hundred years, the stars were in the wrong place, or are in the wrong place. Most of the West uses 2,600 years as the period when things need to be adjusted. But if you're in an island or a canoe in the middle of the sea, you need to know where you are. So it happens every 400 to 500 years that things get recalibrated where and when the stars rise and set. So this is one of the reasons that they gather. I don't know this for sure, but I imagine this is true, that the initiating ceremony for the star experts would have also taken place there. I don't know that for sure. I only saw one source that suggested that, and that source didn't have a source. So, but you know, that's what happens in academia. So we're moving down the coast a bit. And this is going way faster than I thought. Oh, I forgot, Ukanipo. Well, we'll just deal with that now. Ukanipo is in Kahanahaiki. It has a partner too. And that partner is Kukaniloko. What do they share? Well, they have birthing site. They have the word kane. They have the words that mean to cry out, as in giving birth. Both have burials in the region. Both had water sources in the region. One set of citations or sources say that Ukanipo was not where people were buried, but rather where they were prepared for burial. I don't have any knowledge one way or the other, so that's something, you know, I'll try to do more homework on over time. Okay, now, Koyahi, by the way, which is next to Kaniana, refers again to Betelgeuse and the solstices. Ko'i is the Hawaiian word for solstice. Ahi is evening and fire, referring to when the sun is setting in the evening, and Ahi being the sun. I need to go a little farther than this and see what I did here. Okay. This happens. Now I remember. This part of Waianae is very, very much involved with the star Sirius. Sirius, most of us know as the navigation star, the canoe steering star. And it is that. but it's an awful lot more. Sirius has more names than any other Hawaiian star. 30-something names. That's a lot of names. One of the difficulties in understanding those names is we don't know what region of what island those names were recorded in or from. And there are regional and island differences in knowledge. We don't know what era. Was it 1000 AD that those names were developed, or 1200, or 1600, or in the 7th? We don't know. We don't know who the chiefs of influence at any one time, or chiefs of influence when any one of these names was created were. So that's a caution that I put out there, especially for Sirius, because quite a few of Sirius's names talk about human sacrifice. And I am not convinced that that was a practice everywhere. So, not that what I'm convinced of is really the final word, is it? Kanikupulena. It's mostly gone, I guess, destroyed, damaged, I don't know what you want to call it. But it's the first site that I fell in love with in Waianae. There was so much to understand, and I was before I was beginning to understand the relationship of stars. I didn't know then that Kanikupulena had any relationship to Sirius. It wasn't until I was heavily into cultural astronomy and had a list of names for Sirius that I began to get that. So Lena is a name for Sirius. Kaulua is another name for Sirius. Then we have Kaulua, and I don't know if this is Hai or Hae Mohai, the flower of the heavens, which both Lili Mokulani and Martha Beckwith translate as flower of the heavens, with Moha being a fully developed flower. Sirius Kanikupulena has this, or had, when I first went there, a pretty good sized stone with a pretty big petroglyph on it. And I didn't have a camera with me, so I went home and I drew it. And that's what it looked like to me. And that's a scan of the drawing I made that evening. And the first thing I thought of when I saw that petroglyph was called Nohiokala. And somebody asked me, why would you think that? Well, to me, I guess it could look like a pico, but to me it looked like an eyeball with what do you call this thing in the middle? Pupil, with a pupil and iris. I tried to go back and see that petroglyph. It's gone, gone, gone. The boulder's gone. It's not there. But this has had a huge impact on the way I think about Kanikupulena and how I go about trying to understand. So, Sirius. Why does Sirius matter? Why is there a temple named for Sirius? Sirius is involved with all of these sun stations. The solar zenith, solar nadir, solar nadir, solar zenith, 2 equinoxes, and 2 equinoxes. The only thing Sirius is not doing is solstices. Most important for Sirius are these, the solar nadirs. Solar zeniths and solar nadirs only happen in the tropics. Between the Tropic of Cancer at 23.5 degrees north and the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.5 degrees south, Oahu is at 21 degrees north. So, at our latitude, way up here, we're very close to the Tropic of Cancer. The closer you are to the tropic, the closer together your zeniths are and your nadirs are. So for us, we've got about 3 weeks on each side of a solstice. If you're at the equator, the solstices, the nadirs and the zeniths are 6 months apart, which means they take place on the same day. So the zenith and the nadir occur on the same day. It's weird, but there you have it. So here we go. When the sun is 90 degrees above you, over your head, over your manava, and the rays of the sun are able to come straight into your brain, you're receiving whatever you want to refer to it as: inspiration, intuition, intelligence, wisdom, insight from Kane, the sun. And that happens May and July, and if you need to look up the specific date, you can do that by going to Bishop Museum's planetarium website, and every year they put up the dates for the solar zeniths. They don't seem to know that there are solar nadirs. At the solar nadirs, the sun, like I said, is directly below you and shines upward to what? Your mai, to the source of your descendants and to the memory of those you descend from. The reason that solar nadirs are not well known, there are 2 reasons. First of all, those who came and chronicled Hawaiian knowledge, those folks who came early and did that, they were absolutely certain that if a star or the sun was not visible to the naked eye, Hawaiians didn't know anything about it. We now know that Hawaiian knowledge of the sky was so complete that you could ask a star expert any time of the day where any star was, and he or she could point to exactly where it was, even if it was under the earth at that moment. They could tell you when a star was going to rise, when it was going to set, when it would rise again. They didn't have to see every phenomenon to understand it and to know it and to predict it. So, the other reason is because of the genealogy association of the solar nadir, there were times when that kind of knowledge was forbidden to those people who were not chiefs. There's another reason, and it's really kind of cool. I looked through a lot of literature to find out whether there was an idea attested to for Polynesia that Hawaiians or other peoples of the Pacific sought what the West calls enlightenment. And I couldn't find it, but I knew it was there. What people don't search to be better than they are? What people don't search to understand? That's just a human thing. So when I was going through the names of the Zeniths and Naders, and they're the same thing, I realized that these were times that were used to self-examine, to self-criticize, to accept criticism from others, to realize, to examine, to reach for enlightenment. That's kind of cool. We now have, I have a conversation now going across the Pacific Ocean, thanks to Facebook, with astronomers in Maori astronomers and Cook Island astronomers, and we're all like, yeah, okay. So, there's a special day of the year when Sirius is considered to be the eye of the sun. I'm using July 2 here. I'm using the year 1300 because that's approximately the era that the temples we're talking about were created. But now you can still find it today. When the sun and Sirius are at the same altitude above the horizon, Sirius is considered to be the eye of the sun. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. I don't yet know enough about it. And I can't prove yet, or maybe never, that it absolutely is the same as Kaunohi Okala. But I think it's worth thinking about. So now back to Sirius. It doesn't look like Sirius crosses all of these places, right? They look pretty far apart. But in fact, they're close enough together that they're less than 2 degrees apart. So Sirius does set over each of these places on its way to the horizon. This mountain, its name tells you a little bit about Sirius, and Sirius tells you a little bit about this mountain. Sirius is alone. He is considered alone in the sky. He does make up part of some constellations, but he is considered alone. He was, for one thing, left out of the canoe for a variety of reasons, but he had other stars to take care of that weren't in the canoe. So he was left out of the canoe. That's what this means, to be standing alone. And that's what Sirius does. He stands alone. This mountain is also, or was also, a burial site. That has nothing to do with Sirius, except it has everything to do with Sirius, because Sirius has everything to do with Po. Okay, so here, this Holua slide was also a place where the deceased were slid into the ocean. Most people don't know that there are more than one purpose for a Holua slide, but there are. Kane Ilio, Pokai Bay, even Mauna Lahi Lahi, they're all on the path of Sirius setting. Pokai tells us, or Pokai tells us, that something has entered Po and has been lifted into or carried or led into Po. So it's appropriate that it's pretty much at the end of Pu'upahe'e. Kane'ilio is, yes, it's a point, Kane'ilio Point or Peninsula. It's also the name of a female dog who helps the lost return to where they need to be. And in terms of the end of one's life, you don't want to get lost when you no longer have control of a body. You need to be, or it's great to have someone to guide you to where you need to be. Sirius has a lot of association with dogs. Dogs enter Hawaiian history at the end of the last era of Po in the Kumulipo. Dogs and dog men are the last to arrive in the last era of Po. And then Au begins. This tells us that dogs are what are called liminal creatures. They are at the boundaries. They're at the gate. They're at the doorway. They manage gates and doorways. Particularly, they manage the gate between life and death. Sirius sets between Kolekole and Pu'ukailio. He's inviting both the great darkness that Kolekole represents and the protection that the dog represents. Mauna Lahi, which I didn't mark here, but it's up there. The name Lahi means fin. Wakea's homeland was the Finland. It was given to him by his mother. His mother's down here. And this is where he was given the Finland to live in. And notice this hole between the world below and Earth and us. That's where he is. So this is from Mangaya in far southern Polynesia, but it's a really useful diagram of a way of understanding the relationships of levels of sky, earth, and Po below. Above the ridge where Kanikupolena is Kamaili Unu. And I didn't quite understand why it was there. I mean, why? I knew that Kamaili were stars. But Kamaili are two sets of stars, two sets of twins, as it were. And one are the Gemini twins, Castor and Pollux. And these are their rise and set dates in 1300. The others are the pointer stars of the Centaur constellation, Hadar and Rigel Kentaurus. And these are their dates. And this is what those dates are about. So these events are Sirius events. That is S-I-R-I-U-S events. As were the other twins. Okay. This is Maui. Maui is made up of these constellations. Not complete of the three of these. It's Hercules, Ophiuchus, and Sagittarius. It's a huge constellation. Rigel, Kintaras, and Hadar point to the Southern Cross. And they do that at the dates of the Zeniths and Naders, but they point to the Southern Cross. Why did they do that? Why are they pointing to the Southern Cross? That's a really useful question in anything to do with Hawaiian astronomy. Why did this happen? Why did they care? Okay. Why did they care? Because when the Southern Cross started to set, it meant it was a nadir. And then we have this story of Peapea Makavalu getting his head cut off after he stole Maui's wife. Remember that story? Okay. So, Peapea Makavalu is getting his head chopped off. He's setting. And Maui is cutting his head off. He's rising. So that event, that story of Maui rescuing his wife from a bat isn't a story. It's a chapter in a textbook. It not only tells you that Maui rises when the Southern Cross sets, but that the Southern Cross sets the morning of a midnight nadir, solar nadir. So this is a textbook. That was one of the things I completely loved about, or do love about doing this work. Everything is a textbook. Every star story, every piece of the land, every piece of archaeology, every star name is a textbook. At any rate, with this, with Maui, the Southern Cross, there's more to the Southern Cross than this, just this. It's Kamole o Kahonua. It's the taproot of the earth. It's the source of the earth. So what is this source? I'm going to leave you with that. Here we're going to return to where we started with creation, with cosmogony, with Po and Au, with the beginnings and the beginning of all the beginnings. Thank you. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask, and if I'm capable of answering, I'll try. Make it stop? Can you make it? Oh wait, maybe somebody wants to see something again. Never mind. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Well, so you're mentioning Kamaili Unu. That's one of the ridges up Waianae Valley
Yes.
with Kumaipo.
Yes.
Yes, I live on Kumaipo Street, so I just found that I might tell you what they shared about Kamaili Unu. You know about the Nailio.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody? Yes?
Where is Kane Kapulena?
You know where Maile Unu is?
Why, I know where the camp is, why the camp.
Okay, you know where Kamaile Elementary, Kamaile's charter school is?
Yes, yes.
Okay, if you go north, back from there, you get to the bottom of Kamaile Unu, that ridge, and that's where Kanikapulena is, or mostly was.
It's where there's a hunting trail. There's a hunting trail that goes up the ridge.
Last time I was there, I was chased out by a bunch of dogs who were living in a car.
I know that.
Anybody else? Yes.
What made you want to study this? It's very interesting.
Yeah. I wish I had a really convenient package dancer. When I was a little kid, I had a Chumash teacher, an elder, and then I got older and I had a Navajo Cherokee teacher, and over the years of growing up and into early adulthood, different elders and kupuna, with that distinction being whether they were Indian or Hawaiian, would give me stories of how certain peoples from Native America came to Hawaii, and certain Hawaiian peoples came to the continent. And I was eventually adopted by the chief of the coastal band of the Chumash, and he and his wife gave me buckets of stories and insisted that Hawaiians and Chumash are brothers and sisters, that Chumash took their tomos, their canoes all the way out to here, that like Hawaiian canoes, they're built the same way. The first chief of their offshore islands was a woman named Lahui. Yeah, and she was on an island named Limu. So I had all these stories. I didn't know what to do. At the time, academia was absolutely insane about what they called diffusion. In academia's mind, there was absolutely no way that Polynesians and Native peoples of the Americas had ever encountered each other, ever. And it was an anathema. If you wrote a paper about it as an academic, you could count on not getting a grant for the rest of your tenure. So it was that bad. I saw a documentary back in the day when the Learning Channel and Discovery had actual documentaries instead of screaming swamp people. And there was a professor who was interviewed, and she talked about contact between Inca and Hawaiian and Aztec and Hawaiian. So I wrote down her name and I wrote down her institution, and the next day I phoned her and she didn't hang up on me. And then she told me, you have to talk to this guy, David Kelly. I didn't know who he was, and if I had known who he was, I would not have phoned him, because he was famous. He was one of the original decipherers of Mayan hieroglyphics. He's a big deal. But I didn't know that, so I just phoned. And I started talking to him about these stories, and he started assigning me homework. And the first couple of books he assigned me were not directly on stars, but they were tangentially on stars. And I got hooked. And he became my mentor. And this was, when you still had to pay long distance. And I had to do it because he was already almost 90 and wheelchair bound, so I wasn't going to let this go. And then he kind of dared me to go to grad school and get a degree in cultural astronomy, and I had to wait until I inherited enough money to pay tuition. And fortunately there are no degrees now except where I got mine. There used to be other degrees available, but they tend to be personality based, and once the director retires, the program falls apart. So that's how I got started. And the mythology that I can tell, Kiao Mele Mele, the romance of Lairi Kawai, all the Laka and the La'a stories. These are all star stories. The La'a stories are really clear They are named all over this island. You know, there's Pu'okila, there's Kila, there's Pa'ala'a, there's, I mean, the whole story of La'a Maikahiki is written on this island, and La'a, by the way, is the square of Pegasus. So I over-answered.
Perfect answer. Perfect answer. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
I see a question online from Patrice. She wants to know, and it's a good question, do zeniths and naders occur at the same time you mentioned where Oahu is? Would it be at the same time on the other islands, like
No.
say Hilo?
No, it's absolutely dependent on your latitude. So even the southern part of Oahu has it at a slightly different time than the northern part of Oahu. But all of those are online at the Bishop Museum Planetarium website. It'll say Hilo, say Lahaina, you know.
And what degree the stars rise at?
No, it won't talk about the stars. It'll talk about the zenith sun. The zenith sun will be some period of minutes after 12 noon. The same is true for at night, but because Bishop Museum doesn't know that there's a nadir, they don't deal with it. But if you email me, I can give you, like, I'll take a screenshot of my planetarium program for this year for that date. Does that help? Sure. Anything else? Anybody? Yes, sir.
I heard stories of Maui being from Nanakuli, and Pu'alekalau is where he captured the sun. So
I would love to do a presentation on Maui and Nanakuli. I was gonna do that in addition tonight, but I realized I might not survive that amount of time. But I would love to do that because Nanakuli is totally rich in Maui. Yeah.
Are you open to do the presentation the second weekend of May? May 10th to the 12th, because we're having our 4th annual Lohaina Educational Culture Weekend.
Oh, yeah.
We'd love to have you to be a presenter there.
I would love to do that. Do remind me.
I will.
I mean, take one of my cards tonight so you can
Sure.
email me because I'm 69 years old. Things get lost.
Where is that at?
At Our Lady of Cal.
At what? Our Lady of Cal.
Yeah.
The date is the second weekend of May, and Mother's Day weekend, so it's gonna be May 10th to the 12th. So we'd love to have you, Martha.
I would
Especially
love to be
talk
there.
about Maui, you know, being from over here. Nanakuli.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm about halfway done with a Maui presentation. I was kind of hoping that this last part with the Pepe Makavalu would be like, would make somebody want me to do that.
Perfect timing, perfect timing.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I don't know if this is like off topic, but you were talking about Sirius and
Yes.
you know its relationship to dogs.
Yes.
And isn't Sirius known as the dog star
Yes.
even in Western?
Yes. And
Any thoughts about that? And how?
I really don't know except for his solo position in the sky and his association with the sun for some reason. He is a canid. Sometimes he's a fox, in some cultures he's a fox, or he's a wolf, or a coyote, or a dog, but he's always some sort of dog-related creature. And I don't know. I'm not sure that diffusion accounts for all worldwide ideas. But that's a great pickup because, yeah, it's everywhere.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I follow Homai Kapono on Instagram.
Yes.
And I see I am spoiled. I enjoy the posts every day, and I'm too lazy to order a planner. I saw that you contributed to it.
Not voluntarily.
Oh.
Would you like the information that's on those things?
Well, I was gonna see your opinion if I should continue being lazy and check the daily post, or would it be worthwhile having the planner in hand?
I don't know anything about the planner. I have never seen it. That's why I was kind of surprised that I was there. So the daily one is the only one I can recommend, but I would like to just put a little bit of a asterisk there. Let me do this really carefully.
Come back to it.
It doesn't, the whole understanding is missing. So sometimes a partial misunderstanding leads to not good results. So that's just a little heads up. But the effort is there and it makes really nice pictures.
Gotcha.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. Hi. Oh, hi.
Nice to see you today.
You too.
Thank you. When you were talking about near the end about, you kept saying, like every story, every place name is like it's like a textbook. Can you just talk a little bit more about like what do you mean by that?
Sure. When I realized that the square of Pegasus was La'a, I went looking for La'a. And of course, La'a Mai Kahiki was there. So then I needed to learn what was La'a Mai Kahiki about? And why did the elements of the story take place? What was that journey celestially? What was that journey when he was in Kahiki and went up the Mauna to get his, his brother, yeah? Moikeha's oldest son. What was that about? Because he had a fight with the Pleiades on the way up, right? And once again, because this happens a lot to somebody, they get their heads cut off. Okay, so the Mapali'i decided, I'm out of here. I'm never coming back to Earth. So you can call that a catastrophizing of Makali'i, getting Makali'i thrown into the sky forever. So there are elements, and it takes a lot of time to let it run around in your head. Okay, so you read the story, you know what the stars are, you got some idea about the navigation involved between Kahiki and Kauai. You've taken apart the names, Kila and Moikeha and La'a, and you understand the many meanings of those names, but you still don't get it yet. And then 6 weeks later, you get it. And then 3 months after that, you go, whoa, I didn't get it. Now I get it. And that process goes on and on and on. So it's an unending textbook. For me, the warehouse, the library, is Kukani Local. For those of you who, there's a thing called haptic perception. And that means that your skin crawls or gets cold or your breathing changes, or you get chicken skin, or your hair stands up on end. In some way, your body is responding to something. Kukani Loko has, for me, a huge tendency to make stuff happen like that. And so I know that's one of the ways I know I'm being taught something, even though I have no idea what I may have just been intended to learn. But usually if I go home and study my star books or whatever, within days, I'll know something I didn't know before. So those are the kinds of textbooks I mean. Hope I didn't babble too much. I'm a babbler.
Good job.
I came a little bit, so what's the story of Makaliki?
The story of Makali'i? Oh, this is just in one mo'olelo, that of La'a Mai Kahiki. Okay, when Kila was trying to get La'a down from the mountain to get back on the canoe and go with Kila back to Hawaii, Kila had to fight Makali'i. Makali'i was between him and his brother's house. So they had a huge battle, and Kila killed Makali'i. When a star gets killed, or a planet gets killed, what that means is it just set below the horizon. It'll be back. But for now it's dead because it's set below the horizon. So, he was killed, Makali'i was killed. But in this story, it goes further than that. The Pleiadians were thrown into the heavens because Makali'i said he's not coming back, he's done. He will never come back to Earth again. So that's why he's up there. You, I'm sure, know that there are a bazillion Makali'i versions. You know, whether, you know, there's like lots and lots of stories about who and what Makali'i is or was. Anybody else? Yes?
You had mentioned the term hala, I think, earlier. And about 20 years ago, I read this, a little piece in a book by this guy named Kupi. And he talked about hala. So, and the story here was that there was an argument or a wrong. When a wrong is done, and one person does not forgive or let go of that wrong, they go with it. They travel together. Until somehow one of them decides he's done. So I was wondering if that made sense to you.
Yeah, one of the words for zenith and nadir is halawai. And that again, why in this case is the sun's rays. So the sun's rays are cleaning your hala. They're cleaning your wrongdoing. But it's a pun because there's 4 of them, 2 zeniths, 2 nadirs, so you have ha, la, wai as well. Punning is rampant in Hawaiian astronomy. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I have a question. Since your journey on your journey, would it be safe to say that you're receptive towards kupuna intervention? You know.
Yes. I had to think for a minute, what does he mean? But then I realized it doesn't matter because the answer would be yes anyway. Yes?
Hi, okay, so I'm sitting here, and to be honest, for a very long time I haven't been interested in my Hawaiian culture. So now it's like I'm sitting here and listening to this, and it's like, oh my God, where do I start to learn? So maybe I can speak to you after. Oh.
You can, and maybe, you know, I don't think there's any community that I would rather share this with than the community that's here. I don't just mean the folks in this room, but this part of Oahu. You know, I sometimes guest lecture at UH Manoa, and that's good. And I'll do that at Windward Community College, and that's good, but I really think this should be the home of Hawaiian astronomy. Until somebody builds a college at Kukaniloko. Pardon?
We're a park navigation lab that's ascending instead of being out on the beach.
Cool.
Right here, Marakumu, and all of us in your, thank you, we appreciate that.
Ah.
We pride ourselves.
You should. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Support the GMP project on Mauna Kea?
No, I don't.
I was gonna ask you that question.
If I were an astronomer, that might be a different answer, but for me, culture trumps science.
Yes.
Okay?
Hallelujah.
No problem. Anybody else? Alrighty then. Thank you.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
like the, kapule?
Yes?
What is the mo'olelo behind that?
I don't know what the mo'olelo is, but I know what it is that, oh, well, the mo'olelo has to do with kamapua'a. I've had some great arguments with Emmett Aluli. I don't know if you know him. Emmett and I argue over the pigs of Oahu. He keeps saying they're kamapua'a, and I keep saying, not in my yard, they're not. In my yard, they're kanepua'a. But at any rate, Kamapua'a's grandmother, I don't know the story well, but it has to do with his grandmother. From Sam Gon's point of view, it... All right, we'll just leave that there. Okay. Oh my goodness. It's wonderful to have a room full of personality. Alrighty, anything else? Yes.
I just can't help but to add, you know, when you say culture trumps astronomy, and then also, you know, like 1,000 years ago, the knowledge of the stars by Hawaiians, I mean, as you're, you know, sprinkling us, was tremendous. They didn't have any telescopes.
No. No.
They didn't need that. You know?
And calamai for sticking my nose in this, but when you know the stars and their meanings and their associations from the point of view of standing or sitting or lying on the planet Earth, your respect for places, your intimacy with the Aina gets really intense. And then you don't go around chopping off the top of mountains.
Yeah.
So that's my personal opinion, but of course I'm correct. Anybody else?
I have just an announcement.
Okay.
Thank you guys for coming tonight. Can you guys please sign our check-in list here? It's on this clipboard here if you haven't already signed in. Thank you.
What is your doggy's name? Your puppy, your dirty dog's name?
Her name is Stella,
Stella.
which means, do you know what it means? Yay!
She's so beautiful and good.
Thank you.
She must be so tired.
She is exhausted. She was exhausted because getting here took over 3 hours.
So can we all can we give her a big hand?
Happy birthday to Auntie Ilani. It was her birthday yesterday.
Thank you guys all for coming. We'll be doing something again next month, but I don't know what it is yet.